Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah, and in this episode, we sit down with Tim Hannig. Tim is an amazing magician and entertainer. He's predominantly a school show performer, but that means he performs for kids, he performs for families, and he performs in loads of other places too. This was such a fabulous episode because we got to dig deep with Tim and talk about some of his strategies from school shows, about interacting with the people, about business, about your show itself. So many different bits and pieces of advice that not only can you use if you're going to do school shows, but also stuff that you can use even if you're not doing school shows, even if you're not doing family shows. This is worker advice that I'm super excited to share. Usually people like Tim are workers that just do so many shows that maybe no one's ever heard of them, but recently he's been appearing on Magic convention lineups and buzz has been about what Tim has been doing. So I have been really excited to share it with the world and learn about it myself. This was a lovely episode. I know you're going to love it. I know I did. Here it is, a wonderful time with the one and only Tim Hannig. Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah, and in this episode, we sit down with Tim Hannig. Tim, how are you?
I am doing great. Thank you, Jonah. So excited to be here.
I am super excited to chat with you for a few reasons. Let's start at the beginning. How did you get into magic?
I started, like most of us when I was just a kid. And one of my earlier memories was my dad taking our family to go see Blackstone Jr. After the show, we went to a pizza restaurant, and my dad started diagramming how he thought some of the things were done. He had a very analytical mind, and he really wanted to help me out. So instead of Lady to Lion, we went home, and he bought a gerbil cage, a little Mickey Mouse figurine, and he had figured out the black art principle, and so that was kind of the beginning, and things really kind of took off, I'd say, when I was about 17. That's when I started doing shows for Six Flags theme parks around the country for 3 summers. So, yeah.
One thing that I'm really, really interested in is the turning points for magicians where they kind of take going full-time or doing magic professionally or even just, being paid to do magic. That's a really exciting point for me. So is there a point that sticks out to you where you kind of realize that you were doing it full-time or for money or that you could do it professionally?
Yeah. When I was in high school, I certainly thought it would be fun, and I was very passionate about magic, but I knew I wanted to go to school and get my degree and have something to fall back on, I guess you would say. But I started doing those Six Flags shows right after my senior year of high school, and those were 6 shows a day, 28-minute show, same show over and over and over and over. So I think that was a great training ground for me to realize you either love this or you don't. And for me, it became less about the actual material, but okay, how can I keep these people here? Because when they're at a theme park, they have no allegiance to you. They pay their money and they want a day of fun, right? So I learned a lot that summer, just over and over, trying to keep the audience engaged.
There's nothing better than not only an opportunity, like as a young magician, an opportunity to perform like a lot for real people doing the exact same act so you can build character and build timing and all that stuff. But there's something really amazing about when you have the opportunity to perform for people who are allowed to walk away. Anybody who gets their start performing in a location where the people are allowed to walk away, those people are secretly devastatingly the best performers around.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why I love street magicians. I'm like, if you can get someone to stop, watch you, and give you money in just a matter of minutes when they have no allegiance to you, you could perform anywhere. Yeah. And so the next summer in New Jersey at Six Flags there, I was spoiled. They put me in a 1,300-seat indoor air-conditioned theater. So now I had people sitting there for the air conditioning or because it was raining outside or whatever, but they were both great experiences. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And just, we're about to get into it, but so that people know at home, you perform magic in many different markets, but predominantly you're a school performer, a kids show performer, but your kids show is unlike anything that anybody has ever seen, I think. And you talk a lot in the book about why that is and some of the strategies for why that is. But first, let's talk about kids. Why kids entertainment? Why did that stick out to you as being the niche for you?
I started doing the schools when I was a sophomore in college, and it just was a great fit for my schedule even. And I truly do enjoy performing for kids. The school environment is just a fantastic environment because the kids are out of class, so they're excited about that. They're there to see a show. The conditions are always pretty much the same, so you can count on those. They're very enthusiastic audiences. They're honest. They tell you right away, with their feedback. If you get laughter from them, it's genuine. Same with any of their reactions. So, and just the challenges that brings has been really rewarding, really rewarding. So my favorite audiences are probably, family audiences where parents and kids are sitting together. I really enjoy that as well.
One thing that I'm really excited, really passionate about is this idea of, magicians finding the niche or a niche that works for them and really, really making it work. And what that means is, going deep instead of wide. And what happens is you start to become a real expert in things. You know what your show needs to look like. You know what the family show needs to look like. You know what your sales table looks like after the show. You know how kids generally respond. You know what's before the show. So by having a niche, you end up really becoming a master. So one thing I want to talk about in terms of the show itself, before we talk a little bit more about the industry, is you intentionally don't talk down to the kids. And I think that when people think about kids performers, they sometimes think of like really, really silly, and there is room for that. Maybe people that are really young, or it's a different style or whatever. But the style that you have found has been to be more real and more authentic. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
My success, I think, has come from the kids feeling a connection. When I'm performing, I'm not trying to be this crazy character or anything like that. My goal is, for the kids to want to see more. It's not, I think a lot of children's entertainers gravitate to the silly, where I don't really have a lot of the silliness in my show. I think the kids just think it's cool and they like it, and it is on their level, but I'm not talking down to them. But even when I'm in a school, if you give me an audience of kindergarten through second graders for one show and then a third through fifth, a lot of times after the first show, like a PTA mom or an educator might come up and say, now, the second show, they're going to be older, right? Those are they're going to be tougher, as if I haven't done this, a million times before. So, and I always tell them, the show's not going to be different, but my attitude is, just like any good teacher. I watch these PE teachers. They might be teaching basketball skills all day long, but they're going to talk differently to the fifth graders than they are to the kindergartners. But even then, it's not talking down to them. And I even avoid certain phrases like, I don't call them boys and girls. To me, that automatically says you're boys and girls and I'm an adult. I do a lot of the kind of language where I'm say things like we and our teachers. Well, it's obvious that I'm not in school with a teacher, but it's almost like I'm a grown-up kid, I guess. I'm trying to identify more with them. This comes across in so many ways. Even when the principal is introducing me, I don't have them introduce me as Mr. Hannig, even though they might want to. They introduce me as Tim.
One of the things that stuck out to me was your commitment to production value. In a minute, we'll talk a little bit about music, because I think that there's a lot there. But I wanted to talk about maybe some other keys to making yourself look and feel professional. One of the things that really stood out to me in this book is that any person who crossed your path from the moment you start communicating with them to the end when you leave the show is like, man, this guy must have done this like 1 trillion times, because everything is down to a T. Everything is down. And I know I poke a little bit of fun at like Aussie Wind, because when Aussie Wind performs somewhere, he likes to rearrange all of the furniture before he performs somewhere. It's like feng shui.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit funny, but also you realize that that's to make the situation the perfect and the optimal situation. And I think you found a way to do that, which really, really delivers. Do you want to talk about, I guess, first the importance, and then maybe some other, if you've got like secret tips for your school shows of things that you've found that really work for you?
It doesn't matter whether you do school shows or not. Whatever market you are in, you can come across where your audience feels safe, where they know that you're the one to hire. I don't care if you're doing a birthday party. Like, if you know what you're going to say to the parent and they get a birthday party strategy, successful tips guide before the show, so they know exactly what's going to happen. And then they get a little video 2 days before saying what's coming up. And you walk in and you have a little trick for the kid. I mean, there's so many things that you can do no matter what market you're in. But to know exactly what you're going to do through this whole process, from the moment you get an inquiry or you answer the phone, taking them through the whole sales process, to showing up that day and how you talk when you're in the office, how you talk to the principal about working their messages into the show, how you have your show set up, that it's not just left to chance,
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things where as you do more and more of it, yes, naturally, things will get better. Hopefully, what you just said acts as a little bit of a reminder for people to say, like, if I figured out something that works for my show, my dealing with my audience, my dealing with my booking process, whatever, the amount of benefit you get from just ensuring that you stick to doing that every single time. Like, one of the things that you do is, and we'll talk in a moment about the late night family shows, but at the late night family shows, you basically don't compromise on the thought that kids sit in the front. Everyone sits with their family, right? And you could compromise, but you've learned that you're not going to compromise. And what I'm hoping sticks with people is, if you learn something that works, to become finicky or a diva or whatever about not compromising for that thing, because you know that when that thing is the way that it is, that everything else works, because everything else becomes more reliable. That's something worth taking note of. That's something worth making its way into your rider, into your contract, and so on.
But also knowing which things are worth fighting for. And I think in the book, I call it choosing your battles. So there are many things that I will have my preference on. And, sometimes you show up to a venue, a school, a corporate event, whatever it might be, and they've read everything and they are on board and they are for your success. But we've all shown up to those gigs where, I literally sometimes have said to myself, did they read it and just try to do everything the opposite? Is this just a big test for me? Those are the days where you kind of find out what you're made of, and you have to choose your battles, like we were saying. So there are certain things that I don't budge on, because the quality of the show will suffer. So if I have a custodian grumbling at me based on the number of chairs that they have to set up, well, we only had 100 people show up and nobody ever, and I'm like, no, you're going to have 400 tonight. You're going to have 600 tonight. Like, I can predict how many people are going to come to my show based on the enrollment, the area that I'm in, and so on. And
I want to talk about one other thing with doing school shows, which is audience control. And you mentioned it earlier that you don't use things like, saying, hey, here are the 7 rules to being in my show, or anything like that. But it's really, really apparent to the teachers and to the principals, and a lot of the times to the magicians at magic conventions when you do this, for the kids, that your ability to control the kids is really different than maybe what other people are doing. So talk to me about some of the strategies that you use to fix that.
Well, my number one thing is, respect them. So I think just the general attitude of treating them like I would want to be treated. Like I was saying before, my persona is not, hey, look what I can do that you can't. It's like I'm a friend. I have these other strategies that I do talk about, like knowing your show. There's no chance for a child or student to misbehave in my assembly show because there is no downtime. There are no chance to fill silence with a moment of whatever you'd want to call it, misbehaving or, being a smart aleck or whatever. So I know my words, I know what I'm going to say, I know my props, I know how I'm going to move. I know when they walk in the room that I'm going to be interacting with them. Maybe I'll go towards the back of the room and entertain or do a couple of close-up magic tricks for the fifth graders. Immediately I'm getting them on there. Now, these are the kids that all the other kids look up to. These are the big kids.
And the ones that you might be maybe were fearful that you might lose in the show itself. Now you're like pre-winning them over.
Yeah. Or even when I'm in middle schools, I'll go up in the bleachers and do that with the eighth graders, whatever the oldest class is. Now, can everyone in the room see what I'm doing? No, but my mic is on. They hear the kids clapping and reacting, and they're like, oh my gosh, what's this? What's going to be happening? So immediately I'm gaining their respect. I know how I'm going to move on stage. There's just no downtime. And I guess that comes back from the Six Flags thing. When you do something over and over and over, you get good at it.
One thing that really, really sticks out to me as being the secret is your commitment to doing so many freaking shows. And I know that's silly, and I know we kind of like have repeatedly come to that. Like there was a time when I was doing 22 public shows a month, and there was a time when I was doing 40 and all this different stuff. And when I'm doing multiple shows a day, multiple performances a day, saying the script, every beat, every moment becomes incredible. And I felt like, a lot of the information that I was reading was very, very valuable, about these moments in your show and how to do this, pay attention to this. But really what was yelling at me through the page is do it 1,000 times. Like just do the show 1,000 times. That's all the juice that you need to make every joke funny, to make every moment work, to make it seamless, to make it flawless.
Yeah, it drives me nuts when I see somebody, 15-year-old Tim with his magic suitcase table, and in between each trick he says, and for my next trick, and he leans down behind his table awkwardly, and then he's scrubbing, pulling something off a shelf and putting on top, or it just like, no.
But that's the start, right?
That's
the
start.
Start.
We all have to start, right? But I saw another performer that had like one of these 6-foot tables on the stage with like 15 tricks on them, and they just are like, I performing this trick and I set it down. I'm going to perform this next trick and I'm going to set it down, and I'm going to perform. Like, that's not a roller coaster, right? I want my show to be like a roller coaster. Now, a roller coaster, you don't know what's coming next, but you buckle up and you trust the theme park that you're going to live through it. Now, it's going to be exciting. It might be a little scary. It might be fun, but you're having a great time with the people that you are. And that's kind of the trust and the engagement that I try to get out of the kids in the opening moments of my show. I know kids are expecting someone to come out and say, hello, boys and girls, welcome to the magic of blah, 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 and whatever they're going to say, and give a few rules, and then, start like, no, I want to hit the ground running, and like they're watching just their most fun TV show or at some thrill ride. That's my goal. Do I always hit it? Maybe not, but that's how I want the kids to feel like when they're at the show, like just this super crazy fun experience.
There is a superpower in monotony. There's a superpower in seeing the same thing over and over again and living the same part over and over again. And it's a crazy thing to say because, one of the things I wanted to touch on is what you were just talking about, that idea that a magician could be performing and not present. That's something that actually happens to pros. This is something that happens to people who perform enough that their act is ingrained in them and that they can zone out in their performance and zone back in. And it's a completely different person than should be hearing. You understand what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? Like that's almost for a pro who is like just a reminder. Once you know your act fully, you still want to be as in the moment as you possibly can.
Yeah. Like I'm not worried about the words that I'm going to say because I know, because and by the way, just so listeners know, I do change my show every year. So every year it's an hour and 45 minutes of different material because schools have me back annually. So it's a different 45-minute assembly and a different 60-minute family night. But I would say part of this key of being present is not getting bored with your own material. No matter how many times you've done it, no matter how many times you've gotten a certain audience reaction. If you have honed a routine to get a certain reaction from the audience and you get it, just because you did it the night before and you're going to do it the next night, it doesn't mean it's not real. In the book, I talk about Hugh Jackman and how we went to see his big arena show, The Man, the Music, the Show. And I read about him beforehand, and he talked about this arena show and how he wanted to be able to go off script and to make people believe that what they were seeing that night was special for just that night. He wants people to think that they saw something happen that doesn't normally happen. And so I paid attention during the show, and he did. He was talking about how much he loves Chicago and how his wife's best friends are here tonight, or how Michael Jordan played here, and oh, this is the beginning of the summer solstice, and on and on. Hugh didn't just decide to stop his show that night. I know he did it the next night and the next night and the next night as he took his arena tour around the country. But just because it was planned doesn't mean it wasn't real. And that when if we have a line that we say in our show and it gets some kind of a reaction, really experience it. I mean, that's part of the fun of performing. Just because we get good at something that we're doing it so much, I think becoming monotonous with something or starting to hate it, that's a sign you need to either change things up or change your attitude or find something else to do, I think. I mean, we owe it to our audiences to give them a moment of escape that's genuine.
And to like what we're doing, right? Right.
I mean,
it's feeling painful.
We're entertainers. This is, sometimes it's not easy to go do a show if you don't feel like it that day, right? But we can let that go when we hit the stage. Of course, from reading my book, when I say hit the stage, I don't mean the literal stage. I mean, we're hitting the stage the moment we walk into our venue, or the moment we're always on stage. We're always performing when we're in our client's eyes.
I wanted to change gears and talk a little bit about the nighttime adult show, because that was something that is very new and exciting to me for kids performing, and I think it's just a great idea. So do you want to talk first a little bit about how you work with the school to have a kind of night show for the family, and then talk a little bit about the show?
Yeah, the first show is 45-minute assembly, and that's for the kids. And even the teachers and the administrators who are watching, they love it just as much, even though I freely admit they're probably seeing it kind of through the kids' eyes. But it's not, a childish or silly show like we've already talked about. But then I get the kids hyped up about coming back at night, and I do an hour-long show at night, and that's called Family Night. So the idea is that the kids come back with their parents, and they sit as families. And this kind of show is one that adults might come not expecting to enjoy it. They might expect to watch. When I say see it through the eyes of the kids, I'm thinking of, I don't know, an extreme example might be like you go see Barney or something. Barney's so targeted for those kids, right? That the little 3-year-olds or whatever they are, that the adults, if they take their kids to see Barney, the adults aren't really enjoying it. They're watching their kids.
They're enjoying their kids enjoying
exactly, which that's a fine strategy, but it's not my strategy. I want the adults to literally enjoy it on their own merits. Like someone might see a show on a Disney cruise ship. I mean, I haven't seen David Williamson's show on a Disney cruise line, but I would imagine that any adult that's there with their kids, they are not seeing it just through the eyes of their kids. They are dying laughing just like their kids, because he's a brilliant entertainer with a broad appeal, right? So that's kind of my goal with these evening shows. I want to create an experience for families that they can enjoy together, because, there's not much that parents can do with their kids that doesn't cost a lot.
Mm-hmm. And how do you do it? The school pays for it, the families pay for it. How do you do it?
I've done it both ways. In the beginning, I would do ticketed, where the assembly would be free during the day, and then we'd sell tickets at night. But there came a point where most schools don't want to charge their families. They do a fundraiser or something else, and they have money in their budget. So sometimes I'm paid for with grants. Sometimes I'm paid for with school funds. Sometimes I'm paid for with like a parent group funds, PTA, PTO, something like that. Let's say you're doing a family reading show or something. Maybe there's a budget for that. Or since my show is kind of character driven, and there's these messages sprinkled throughout about being a pro kid, being a good person, treating others the way you want to be treated. There's sometimes money in those kinds of committees that head those things up and they'll allocate funds for that. So I feel good about that. Families can have this hour-long experience. And, a lot of times parents come because their kids are dragging them. No parent really wants to go out at night for something like this, but they'll go. And at the end of the show, they've warmed up and happy came. Yeah.
There is nothing better than winning someone over like that, or winning people over and like knowing that you have to do it every time all over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about music in your show, and specifically what the process is that you go about to adding music to your show, because if I understand correctly, your stuff has customly made music. So talk to me a little bit about what this process and procedure looks like for you.
There are different ways we all use music. I use music in my show pre-show, like while they're coming in. I have like a theme song to the Pro Kids show. There's music that goes along with stories that are told. Then there's like little bumps, I guess you'd call it, when somebody's coming up on stage or going back. And then there's music when they're leaving. So the most customized part, the Pro Kid Show, I work on with a friend of mine, Scott Humston and Steve Pennington. These are a couple of guys that perform in other parts of the country. So we'll write material together and then we'll each kind of go and do our own thing. So just so when I say I or we, so let's say I'm wanting to put out a story with a custom track behind it. So we'll write the story or adapt a story and then kind of script it out. Like, how are we telling this? Am I playing a character in it? Once we have the script, we hire someone and put music behind it and kind of go back and forth until it's just right. And now you have a custom piece. So that has been a thing that's really set the show apart. It feels like Disney. All of a sudden in the show, it feels like Disney. Like, I've had principals say that over and over and over. Like, what the heck, like.
And something like music is one of those things, like we said earlier, that makes you not appear a professional. It makes you a professional.
And you don't have to. Listen, I'm not saying everyone has to create a story and put, there's times when I even do shows where that wouldn't even be appropriate or fit. I'm not going to go pull out one of these 6-minute stories. And let's just say I was doing a blue and gold or I'm just trying to think what other kinds of shows are for kids, blue and gold birthday party. I'm not going to go do a 6-minute story with a message and all that for a lighthearted family affair like that. We're going to keep it fun and fast paced and moving, and you don't even need custom, Some people say they don't use music, and I guess not every act needs it, but I can't remember the last time I saw a movie that didn't have music. I can't imagine that music would ever make an act worse unless you're just using it inappropriately.
I love that, and I think this is the wake-up call for people to give some music a shot. I think it should be. And I know you said you don't have to, but I really do love the custom stuff. I think it makes a big impact. I wanted to talk a little bit about the business side of things. So I love that you work with a team for your development of the show. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. Are you working with other people? Are you doing it all yourself? Tell me about how it happens.
I've done it both ways. I had a secretary for about, 10, 12 years, and she handled all of the incoming leads. Didn't do a lot of outbound because after doing this for quite a while, it was mainly just handling incoming, and that kept me busy enough. She must have booked 3,000 shows for me, but her daughters, once they got into high school, she kind of took a break, and that's when I discovered Mago.
Mago Talent?
Mago Talent, yeah. It's a CRM to help you keep in touch with your clients and manage your calendar and your online contracts and all of those types of things. So that really was kind of a life-changing thing for me, because I had so many systems that I was able to set up, workflows, you might know them as. So, and somebody contacts me, I can plug them in and set them up on that they're going to get this email this day and this day and this day. And then once
automatically.
Once they book, it goes over to this system, and they're going to hear from me 7 days before the show, 3 days before the show, 1 day of the show, the morning of the show, the day after never do I show up to a school and they're like, oh, I just try to think through the client's eyes. You hire someone, let's say it's a contractor from your house, and you don't hear from them, and you don't know if they're going to show up, and they give you a window of time, and maybe they don't show up, or that doesn't give you confidence in them for the future. I love it when I show up to a school and they're like, oh my goodness, like you have this down to a science. You made our job so easy. We knew exactly what was happening every step of the way. So
Do you do any outbound marketing, or it's mostly word of mouth?
mostly word of mouth and repeat, but no, like there's no like Google ads or even I'm terrible at even like SEO, and I should be better at those things. I do realize that, but thankfully my client base is loyal enough and they love what I do enough, and that I've been blessed enough that I'm just have fallen into the ruts of keeping them happy and
But it's a reminder. It's a reminder about how much picking your niche and doing it for a long time helps. And they say in the entertainment industry that you can either do the same show for different people or different show for the same people. Right? Those are the options. And if you have the same people who like keep hiring you every year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and you can make different material for them, and every few years, you gain more and more clients from word of mouth, like it's a whole career from the same 150 clients or 250 clients. Like it's the whole thing. So if there was one key or some keys for you to pass on to somebody who says, they love doing kids magic, they love working for kids, but maybe the word of mouth just isn't moving fast enough, or things aren't getting them out there, or what kind of key or advice in business would you pass along to somebody to really start making it in specifically the school industry?
you want to really be an honest evaluator of yourself. So maybe if you know someone that works at a school, maybe you have someone in your family that's a teacher or an administrator. Maybe you can go do a show if you've not done one before, maybe you could go do it for free or for little money, not worry about the money, but just to get some honest feedback. Do the show. See if what you're doing is a fit for the school market, because not everyone is. And then take that feedback to heart and figure out, okay, what kind of message do they want? Is there a way I can creatively spin that to make it into a show that's engaging to kids? Video yourself, watch it with, it's hard to watch yourself sometimes, but honestly evaluate it. Getting your foot in the door is the best way. And then getting allies so that they are on your side, and then they can spread the word and to get things in motion.
The last thing I wanted to talk about has nothing to do with school shows, but it has to do with virtual magic. And we are in this weird time now where, before I like to release the episodes like a few weeks after I record them, so I have a few in the bank. So before, while everyone was in social isolation, I was releasing episodes, about magicians on tour and whatever, which was really silly. And now, I'm trying to, hopefully do the opposite. But really, now I'm trying to have, now that things are happening right now, I would love to talk to people who are killing it in virtual magic shows. And you happen to be really, really crushing it. You took a little bit of time, understood the landscape, understood what was going on, and then went full steam ahead. And it seems like it's been working for you. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing for virtual magic shows?
Yeah, virtual. I did not hop into it right away. I did not want to put out a product that was, sucky, because I felt like that could reflect badly on me. So I watched some different things and I thought about it. Originally, Easter weekend, I did some ticketed events, just promoted them on my personal Facebook and on my, fan pages and things like that. Hey, ticket, I think I was $15 a family. They bought tickets through Well Attended. That worked great. We put them in private Facebook groups. I chose to do that because I really wanted to do kind of a produced type of show. Most of it was live, but I was throwing in little videos of me doing close-up magic as segues and things like that, just to add some variety, because I'm trying to picture, I knew it was going to be mainly family audiences, and I wanted to make sure it really moved along, just like my real show, just like I hate shows that have lulls in them that aren't strategic, I did the same thing with the Zoom. So I'm not the type that's going to put out a close-up mat and sit there and do 60 minutes of Matrix and things like that. I'm more of a stand-up performer, so I had to figure out the best platform. And for now, it's been Facebook, although I have done some Zoom, and that's been good too. But then I went to my clients. After I had the kind of a formula for what I thought was working virtual, I went and let all my clients know that I was offering that and booked a bunch of school things for the end of the school year, which is where we're at now as we're recording this in May. So a lot of family events for schools. I found that pretty much 100% of the response I'm getting are from, I'm talking about where I'm getting the money that I'm asking. It's from people who've already worked with me. So it's not like I'm taking out Google ads or SEO or trying to go after that. All my success right now is from people who already are familiar with me and they want to keep the family events going.
There's loads of different virtual things to do, but I guess I was just a little bit excited that you're doing it and you found a way to make it work for now or for you or in a way that works. So that's super exciting.
It is strange, because I still have a little bit of that adrenaline when the show ends. And normally when my show ends, boy, people are coming up, they're wanting to talk to you, get a selfie. I have a merchandise table, I'm selling merch. And then I'm packing up for however long at these big family night shows. I might be there an hour after the show packing up because I bring my own sound and backdrop and all this. And then I drive home for an hour. Like the other night I did a virtual show and 5 minutes later I was in my kitchen taking out the garbage. I'm like, this is strange.
I know. It's so weird.
I miss that after the show buzz of, you turn the feed off and they're just gone. The comments still roll in for a while, but it's definitely, no matter how great this virtual thing is, and even if I continue to offer it down the road, definitely miss the live audiences. That's something we know and love as performers.
100%. And I am looking forward to the days of performing for real people again. But for now, it's a good, even at the very least, just experiment in creativity and problem solving and business and entrepreneurship and all of those things for us magicians.
And in the time that the world is in right now, as we're recording this, we might be offering even more of a service than I think some of these families are. We promote it and they're coming to these shows. I think they're looking forward to it, maybe even more than when they were drugged to the school by their kids to come see my show.
1,000,000%. The biggest takeaway that I've had from doing virtual shows is the joy that it brings and me realizing, you know what? No matter how I feel about how a camera lens ruins or doesn't ruin a magic trick or whatever, these people are loving it and having a great time and enjoying themselves with their families and all of this stuff, which is the whole point of why I'm doing it anyways.
Right. So. And I will say with the virtual shows, because if you think about it, we're on a screen, right? And kids, parents, we're all staring at screens more than probably even before, and we were already looking at our phones all the time. What makes this different? Why would a kid or a parent want to watch me when they could go watch David Blaine's latest special? I can't compete with that. And the reason is that it's live and it's personal, and that you're interacting with them. And so, no matter who you are, if you have clients and people you've done shows for, let them know that you can do that. Get a studio set up and just dive in. You'll get better as you go along, whether you're sitting there in front of your close-up mat or a stand-up show. I would say really put thought into it, though. The shows that I've not seen work or that I personally haven't enjoyed is where someone is just treating it like they're just doing their actual show that they did before. I'm now going to take my birthday party show and now I'm going to put it in my living room.
For my webcam. That never works.
Throw on my webcam. It just does not work. So the way that you participate with the audience, the shows that I've done that are not on Zoom, even when I ask for an audience response, there's 15 seconds of latency, so I might, let's say I want a card selected. These are just things to think about if you haven't done one yet. Ask for the playing card and then tell a story or a joke and then boom, now that card's come in. So there's not any of this awkward waiting, and treat it more like I'd say a talk show. You're looking into the camera, you're looking right into their eyes. Everyone has a front row seat. There are a lot of advantages to a virtual show. You're able to, I can do a card trick and hold up a card, and it fills just as much space on that screen as an illusion would.
You can do a card trick for 1,000 people.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So all these close-up tricks, I've had a lot of fun over the last month digging through a lot of things that I've bought over the years, and like, okay, well, that'd be fun to do someday. But
what about all the stuff that we thought you could never do in real life because people want to examine the props, or the stuff that's really angle sensitive? Now that's like the best, stuff that's good for one angle. That's perfect.
I did Brent Braun's Torched and Restored recently, and I'm watching his video about how you clean up the gaff, I guess you'd call it, the torn pieces at the end. I don't think I'm giving away big secrets here. It's a great trick, by the way, if you want something really visual. And I'm like, I don't even have to clean it up.
No.
Nobody's I can just turn it over. It's totally camouflaged.
Yeah. You say, chase me. Want to inspect it? Come to my house. Give it a shot. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, and I love that you found a great way to make the virtual shows work. And now we are rounding about near the end of the episode, and with that, we have a few wrap-up questions for every episode. So we'll start with the first one, which is the endless chain. So in order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that must be on the show. Who would be a great addition to the Discourse in Magic show? Would be very valuable to this kind of thinking.
Who comes to mind is Terry Ward. I've always enjoyed him, and he's a Disney performer, and he probably has some free time right now that Disney's not in session. But man, that guy, he would be a great one to talk to also about not making it monotonous. And he's played characters for Hollywood studios, but his magic is just, I've seen him do stand-up close-up, and he's just an all-around one of the nicest guys in magic. So yeah, he'd be great.
I love it. That's great. Terry Ward. The next question is about modern magic. Magic is constantly changing and growing, and we're obviously seeing that happen right now. What is something about the world of modern magic you like, and something about the world of modern magic that you don't like?
One thing I love about magic is no matter how old you are, there's an entrance ramp for you. I love it when I see someone like Chris Kinner building up the youth, saying, man, these kids are where it's at.
And is there something that you don't like about magic?
I guess I would draw attention to my
modern magic,
to the last chapter in my book called A Good Magician Knows How to Be a Good Audience. I would say anytime a magician does not know how to be a good audience, that would be something that I don't like. And that's not necessarily modern magic, but anytime, as magicians, we are used to getting attention, and we're used to being the only magician that a lot of people know, right? So when sometimes if another magician is getting attention, let's say you're in the audience of another magician show and you're not acting as a normal audience member would, that would be a bad magician. We want, versus being fully engrossed and making that magician look good, I guess. The other thing I talk about in the book is magicians treating my Facebook wall like it's the Magic Cafe. If I'm posting something, or you post something that's clearly for your fans, somebody else popping in and making a reference to a thumb tip or telling me how to do it in their show, or don't promote yourself on somebody else's page.
There you go. A lot of it just comes down to respect amongst magicians. Yeah. For sure. The next thing is the take-home point. So we've been talking about magic for a long time now. When people think back to this episode, what would you like one thing for magicians to remember or hold close to them from this episode? What's the most important part?
Love your audience and give them your best every single show.
I love that, and I love that image of that story of working at Six Flags and looking outside at the line of people and just remembering that they're all going to see you one time, and you have to give it your all for them. That's an impactful story that I can imagine made a big change in the way that you perform. And the last thing is plugs. Where can people go to find you, and where can people go to pick up a copy of the book? I feel like we've just been calling it the book the whole time we have it. It's called Perform. Tell us, where can people go find it, and where can people get in contact with you? Yeah, it's called
Perform. All the stuff to think about. And Josh J. wrote the foreword. The reviews have been really great. Really appreciate that. Ken Weber gave me great plugs and reviews, and I know everyone loves his book, so I thank him for that. It's on performbettershows.com, performbettershows.com. There's two ways to buy the book. You can either purchase it outright, or there's also an upgrade package if you're interested in a bunch of other goodies that come along with it. And seems like most people are doing that, but you can check that out all online. I have digital stuff that you get, as well as seeing me actually perform, a bunch of routines in schools and some marketing pieces. And, it's just a bunch of stuff that I would like to get if you get the upgrade package, but the book stands on its own.
Yeah, and I'll just say it's maybe too full. The book has maybe too many things in it. I think it's like you said,
it could
for
be
anybody
more
who's
than
performing,
one book for sure. I tried to make it the best that I could.
It's got just about everything, and the part that sticks out to me is I think it's a Bruce Lee quote, which is about you're not fearful of the guy that knows 1,000 punches. It's the guy that knows one punch really, really well. And this is like the playbook on the punch that is school shows. And obviously, yes, you learn so much by applying it to your industry and whatever, but this is just like every last detail, from how to book it, to how to set the chairs up, to how to get the responses, to how to fix the show, just everything. So if anybody is doing anything near kids, anything related to booking shows, anything related to auditoriums, like just anything, it really has it all.
And like I say in the beginning, if you don't perform for kids or families, don't stop reading. The book is about the art of performance. And astute readers will glean the information and apply it to their own situation. So that was kind of my goal. Everyone needs to connect with their audience. Everyone needs to know how to set up a situation so that their performance is seen in the best light, and everyone needs to deal with the business side of things. So it's full color. It has these 47 videos that come along with it. And just like you were saying with the music and putting all the attention to detail on these behind the scenes, I try to do the same thing with the book. When I hired, an editor, hired somebody to do all the graphic design. It's not, hopefully it doesn't come across like a homemade project, because
no, it's beautiful, it's lovely, and it's totally packed. And with that, Tim, thank you so much. This was an amazing episode, and an amazing not only opportunity to learn from you, but also just to chat about this amazing business, this amazing industry, and also some of the changing times right now. And I'm pumped as ever for people to pick this up, and I'm pumped about, like, I almost wanted do some more school shows. Like I used to do some. I reminds me of, I do summer camp shows, and it reminds me a lot of that. And it kind of like, I was doing some rereading of it before we hopped on this call, and I'm just like, dang it, I miss performing. I miss full audiences. Gosh
we
darn
have
it.
an amazing thing that we get to do, spread joy and amazement and laughter.
But with that, Tim, thank you so much for joining me. This was so much fun. I had a blast, and I learned a ton, both from the book and from you. And of course, a big thank you to everybody at home who listened, who tuned in, and who was a part of it, and learned a thing or two about school shows and performing in general, and just putting together an awesome act that raises the bar and that you're proud of. And that comes from every last moment. It's the communication, it's the showing up, it's the nailing of the show, it's the follow-up, it's everything, every last bit of it. So hopefully you learned something. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next Thursday. Peace. Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. As always, please share it and spread the word. Think about this for a moment. Where did you discover this podcast? Wherever you discovered it, go and share it there. That would mean the world to me. Podcasts grow slow, and your shares mean the world. Thank you. Much love. See you Thursday.